My darling philosophers, welcome to our daily devotional reading. A special welcome to the members of our make-believe monastery. I need a couple of deep breaths. So let's take a sip of water first. If you have that handy. If not, why not? You should be hydrated. And then let's just breathe. Take a few deep breaths and blow out the steam, blow out any tension build up with a type of out breathing that's equal to a sigh and as long as possible. So breathe in and out. I feel like my sighs are usually better, more sigh-like. It feels better. Just letting it out. Let it all out. Well, let's get on with it. Do what we're here to do. And read Plato. It's our final day of Euthydemus, so I haven't prepared the text, so I have no idea what I'm to expect. Because apparently you can't predict the future. Or apparently you're not very good at predicting. Yeah, that's the exact words. Man, I wish only predicting was my issue. Like, just interpreting already what is quite a challenge, I find. Then, after a pause in which he seemed to be lost in the contemplation of something great, he said, "Tell me, Socrates, have you an ancestral Zeus, ear anticipating the final move, like a person caught in a net who gives a desperate twist that he may get away?" I said, "No, Dionysiodorus, I have not. I do know that Socrates descends from one of the gods. Can't remember which." "What a miserable man you must be then," he said. "You are not an Athenian at all if you have no ancestral gods or temples, or any other mark of gentility." "Nay, Dionysiodorus," I said, "do not be rough. Good words, if you please. In the way of religion I have altars and temples, domestic and ancestral, and all that other Athenians have. And have not other Athenians," he said, "an ancestral Zeus?" "That name," I said, "is not to be found among the Ionians, whether colonists or citizens of Athens. An ancestral Apollo there is, who is the father of Ion, and a family Zeus, and a Zeus guardian of the Phratry, because I gotta, and an Athena, guardian of the same. But the name of ancestral Zeus is unknown to us." "No matter," said Dionysiodorus, "for you admit that you have Apollo, Zeus, and Athena." "Certainly," I said. "And they are your gods," he said. "Yes," I said, "my lords and ancestors." At any rate, they are yours, he said. Did you not admit that? Oh, I see where this is going. Well, I did, I said. What is going to happen to me? And are not these gods animals? For you admit that all things which have life are animals. And have not these gods life? They have life, I said. Then are they not animals? They are animals, I said. And you admitted that of animals those are yours which you could give away or sell or offer in sacrifice as you pleased. I did admit that, Euthydemus, and I have no way of escape. Well then, said he, if you admit that Zeus and the other gods are yours, can you sell them or give them away or do what you will with them, as you would with other animals? Oh no, I forgot something. Oh, never mind. At this I was quite struck dumb, Crito, and lay prostrate. Sisyphus came to the rescue. Bravo, Heracles, brave words, he said he. The one time that they write it like I like it and I don't read it correctly. Brave words, said he. Bravo, Heracles, or is Heracles a bravo, said Dionysodorus. Poseidon, said Sisyphus. What awful, we would use another word, two words actually. JC. Poseidon, said Sisyphus, what awful distinctions. I will have no more of them. The pair are invincible. That's the, I don't know if it's the downside of being a god. Eventually, you become a swear word. Maybe that's the plus side. Then, my dear Crito, there are universal applause of the speakers and their words, and what with laughing and clapping of hands and rejoicing the two men are quite overpowered. For hitherto their partisans only had cheered at each successive hit, but now the whole company shouted with delight until the columns of the Lyceum returned the sound, seeming to sympathize in their joy. To such a pitch was I affected myself that I made a speech in which I acknowledged that I have never seen the like of their wisdom. I was their devoted servant. I just had a memory. And fell to praising and admiring of them. What marvellous dexterity of wit, I said, enabled you to acquire the great perfection in such a short time. There is much indeed to admire in your words, Euthydemus and Dionysodorus, but there is nothing that I admire more than your magnanimous disregard of any opinion, whether of the many or of the grave and reverend seniors. You regard only those who are like yourselves, and I do verily believe that there are few who are like you. Oh, to be praised by Socrates. And who would approve of such arguments? The majority of mankind are so ignorant of their value that they would be more ashamed of employing them in the refutation of others than of being refuted by them. I must further express my approval of your kind and public-spirited denial of all differences, whether of good and evil, white or black, or any other, the result of which is that, as you say, every mouth is sewn up. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You know, like there's like thread being pulled through the lips. Not accepting your own, which graciously follows the example of others, and thus all ground of offense is taken away. But what appears to me to be more than all is that this art and invention of yours has been so admirably contrived by you that in a very short time it can be imparted to anyone, because remember, Socrates already started imitating them. I observed that Sisyphus learned to imitate you in no time. Now this quickness of attainment is an excellent thing, but at the same time I would advise you not to have any more public entertainments. There is a danger that men may undervalue an art which they have so easy an opportunity of acquiring. The exhibition would be best of all if the discussion were confined to your two selves. But if there must be an audience, let him only be present who is willing to pay a handsome fee. You should be careful of this, and you are wise. You will also bid your disciples discourse with no man but you and themselves, for only what is rare is valuable. Many a true word. And water, which, as Pindar says, is the best of all things, is also the cheapest. The best things in life are free, but you can give that to the birds and bees. I want money. That's what I want. And now I have only to request that you will receive Clinias and me among your pupils. Such was the discussion, Crito, and after a few more words had passed between us, we went away. I hope that you will come to them with me, since they say that they are able to teach anyone who will give them money. No age or want of capacity is an impediment. And I must repeat one thing which they said, for your especial benefit, that the learning of their art did not at all interfere with the business of money-making. Imagine Crito as a businessman. Crito, truly, Socrates, though I am curious and ready to learn, yet I fear that I am not like-minded with Euthydemus, but one of the other sort, who, as you were saying, would rather be refuted by such arguments than use them in refutation of others. And though I may appear ridiculous in venturing to advise you, I think that you may as well hear what was said to me by a man of a very considerable pretensions. He was a professor of legal oratory, who came away from you while I was walking up and down. Crito, said he to me, are you giving no attention to these wise men? No, indeed, I said to him. I could not get within hearing of them. There was such a crowd. You would have heard something worth hearing if you had. What was that? I said. You would have heard the greatest masters of the art of rhetoric discoursing. And what did you think of them? I said. What did I think of them? He said. Theirs was the sort of discourse which anybody might hear from men who were playing the fool and making much ado about nothing. That was the expression which he used. Surely, I said, philosophy is a charming thing. Charming, he said. What simplicity. Philosophy is naught. And I think that if you had been present, you would have been ashamed of your friend. His conduct was so very strange in placing himself at the mercy of men who care not what they say, and fasten upon every word. And these, as I was telling you, are supposed to be the most eminent professors of their time. Professors as in teachers at university, not professors, those who profess. But the truth is, Crito, that the study itself and the men themselves are utterly mean and ridiculous. Now censure no of the pursuit, Socrates, whether coming from him or from others, appears to me to be undeserved. But as the impropriety of holding a public discussion with such men, there I confess that in my opinion he was in the right. Socrates, O Crito, they are marvelous men, but what was I going to say? First of all, let me know, what manner of man was he who came up to you and censored philosophy? Was he an orator who himself practices in the courts, or an instructor of orators, who makes the speeches with which they do in battle? He was certainly not an orator, and I doubt whether he had ever been into court. But they say that he knows the business, and is a clever man, and composes wonderful speeches. Socrates, now I understand, Crito. He is one of an amphibious class, whom I was on the point of mentioning, one of those whom Prodicus described as the border ground between philosopher and statesman. They think that they are the wisest of all men, and that they are generally esteemed the wisest. Nothing but the rivalry of the philosophers stand in their way. And they are of the opinion that if they can prove the philosophers to be good and for nothing, no one will dispute their title to the palm of wisdom. For that they are themselves really the wisest, although they are apt to be mauled by Euthydemus and his friends, when they get hold of them in conversation. This opinion which they entertain of their own wisdom is very natural. For they have a certain amount of philosophy and a certain amount of political wisdom. There is reason in what they say, for they argue that they have just enough of both. And so they keep out of the way of all risks and conflicts and reap the fruits of their wisdom. I'm full of mosquito bites, I'm scratching my leg. What do you say of them, Socrates? There is certainly something special in that notion of theirs. Socrates, yes, Crito, there is more spaciousness than truth. I don't know what spaciousness means. Speciousness. There's more of this than truth. They cannot be made to understand the nature of intermediates. For all persons or things which are intermediate between the two other things and participate in both of them, if one of these two things is good and the other evil, are better than the one and worse than the other, and if they are in the mean between two good things which do not tend to the same end, they fall short of either of their component elements in the attainment of their end. Only in the case when the two component elements which do not tend to the same end are evil, is the participant better than either? Now, if philosophy and political action are both good, but tend to different ends, and they participate in both, and are in the mean between them, then they are talking nonsense, for they are worse than either. Or if the one be good and the other evil, they are better than the one and worse than the other. Only on the supposition that they are both evil could there be any truth in what they say. I do not think that they will admit that their two pursuits are either wholly or partially evil. But the truth is that these philosopher-politicians who aim at both fall short of both in the attainment of the respective end. And are really third. Although they would like to stand first, there is no need, however, to be angry at this ambition of theirs, which may be forgiven, for every man ought to be loved who says and manfully pursues and works out anything which is at all like wisdom. At the same time, we should do well to see them as they really are. That's cool. I'm going to reread that. For every man ought to be loved who says and manfully pursues and works out anything which is at all like wisdom. At the same time, we shall do well to see them as they really are. Crito. I have often told you, Socrates, that I am a constant difficulty about my two sons. What am I to do with them? There is no hurry about the younger one, who is only a child, but the other, Critobulus, is getting on and needs someone who will improve him. I cannot help thinking, when I hear you talk, that there is a sort of madness in many of our anxieties about our children. In the first place, about marrying a wife of good family to be the mother of them, and then about heaping up money for them, and yet taking no care about their education. But then again, when I contemplate any of those who pretend to educate others, I am amazed. To me, if I am to confess the truth, they all seem to be such outrageous beings, so that I do not know how I can advise the youth to study philosophy. Dear Crito, do you not know that in every profession the inferior sort are numerous and good for nothing, and the good are few and beyond all price? For example, are not gymnastics and rhetoric and money-making and the art of the general noble arts? Certainly they are, in my judgment. Well, and do you not see that in each of these arts the many are ridiculous performers? Yes, indeed, that is very true. And will you on this account shun all these pursuits yourself and refuse to allow them to your son? That would not be reasonable, Socrates. Do you then be reasonable, Crito, and do not mind whether the teachers of philosophy are good or bad, but think only of philosophy herself. Try and examine her well and truly, and if she be evil, seek to turn away all men from her, and not your sons only. But if she be what I believe that she is, then follow her and serve her, you and your house, as the saying is, and be of good cheer. Me and my house, we will follow philosophy. We will serve the lady, philosophy, or wisdom. Sophia. Thus far our scripture of the evening, and thus far Crito. No, sorry, I'm reading Crito. Euthydemus. Oh, I was the wrong long reading. Okay, I'm gonna start at the end. Aim at both, fall short of both, I wrote. And again, that recalled this weekend, this past weekend. It's a week now since I went, and I'm still interpreting things. And my blessing, of course, came with what do you call it? Demand. And we don't, neither me nor Rebecca understand quite what we are demanding of ourselves quite yet, and what we blessed each other with. But what she demanded of me is to be all in. Because of this very reason, you cannot serve two masters. Aim at both and fall short of both. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that means. What I am supposed to aim at. I think it's just more of the same, quite honestly. Living my monastic type of life. Today went relatively well, the morning routine at least. I got up very early. I woke up very early. And I did a lot of reading. I did my Nietzsche exercises. I did some logic and some Greek. And that's the basic morning routine that I try to incorporate. I'm also writing something again. But that went not as easy as I hoped it would. What is philosophy, and should we love her? I think that's too late for me to to say no to that. Make a mockery out of philosophy that is what Socrates is accused of, for mixing with such strange figures and trying to learn from them. But remember, in the beginning we said something about Socrates playing the type of fool. And they do mention that the Dian part, one of the two brothers, were lost in thought for a while, which is also reminiscent, reminds us of Socrates himself and the mystery religions, cults, mystery cults of the time. A life of contemplation, that's what I like to associate with. A life of contemplation. And then in this aim at both, fall short of both, you see the whole question of the life of contemplation or a life of action question that is further pursued by Aristotle, if I'm not mistaken. and many others after Socrates and Plato. Then Socrates responds to the idea that he was making a mockery out of philosophy by saying, if you keep out of the way of all risks and conflicts, and if you're unwilling to play the fool, you cannot possibly learn anything. So sometimes you have to risk much to gain much. Sometimes you have to enter a conflict. I wrote on cards. I got this a couple of years ago. It's one of my favorite books is The Solitaire Mystery by Justine Garda, the guy who wrote Sophie's World. And it's about a dad and his boy on a journey. Funny, I'm in the journey part of the mystics. And then there's like a whole story within the story about a deck of cards. And of course the joker, the fool, is the philosopher. I think it's a really beautiful it's a cards. It holds playing cards. This is my playing cards. I should play with them more. I think one deck is 4, 5, 6, and then the other deck is 1, 2, 3. Devotion. Aim at both, fall short of both. Being all in. And then devoted. I don't know. I know I read the word devoted. And that is why I wrote it down. But I cannot for the life of me now remember why Socrates referred to the devotion. And I'm making some progress with Hegel. I'm at this yellow place. There. I can now confirm with absolute certainty that I do not understand a word that the man says. But indeed, I love reading him. And he said something about devotion today. I don't know if I marked it. Ah, yes, I did. I marked the entire paragraph on page 123. I'm just going to read it, at least the beginning of the paragraph. In this first condition, consequently, in which we treat it as pure consciousness, it takes up towards its object an attitude which is not that of thought, but rather, since it is indeed in itself pure thinking particularity, and its object is just this pure thought, but pure thought is not their relation to one another as such. It, so to say, merely gives itself up to thought, devotes itself to thinking. Because consciousness, earlier he says, is mainly interested in itself, which apparently all the good stuff is. Relevance realization apparently also is interested in itself. Devotes itself to thinking. He also has the German here, but I don't think it's geht an das Denken hin, and is the state of devotion. I've also got the rest marked, but I'm not going to read everything. And is the state of devotion. And then he also has the German here in brackets, Andacht, I'm reading it like in my language. You pronounce it in my language because we have the exact same word. Sometimes it happens like that the words mean very much something different, but I think it means the same. Aandacht. Aandacht, which is, he translates and is the state of devotion. Attention. It is a word for, where was I? There. Aandacht means attention. So devotion and attention, aim at both, fall short of both. That all seems to be linked. What do we pay attention to? It is so important. And then also wrote, what does being yours mean? Because I don't like their definition of being yours. Belonging. Belonging to, being some, possessing is a very difficult, very bad connotation. I don't know what the word is, but I'm trying to figure out. Be very, yeah, well, anyway. Belonging is different. Possessing and belonging, being yours. I suggest we all just stay quiet for the next hour and contemplate the difference between belonging and possessing. I am not going to do that for the sake of honesty. I'm recording a bit earlier because I'm tired, so I want to have the night for just Netflix. I don't have Netflix. My ex shares his... I knew I shouldn't put this here. Anyways. Disney Plus with me. So I'm going to do that. And the only thing I have left is, I wrote this morning. I was thinking, about the rituals and that I said it was inappropriate, and then I realized it's only inappropriate if I participate. And I'm so used to doing the rituals myself and being part of the rituals. But then I realized, and Rebecca probably thinks it's so obvious that she didn't need to state this explicitly, she never designs rituals with her participating in it. It's always you give the ritual to the person and they perform it mostly on their own, sometimes with their partner, sometimes with friends. But she never participates. The one time she participated was on Holly's land with the ritual she did. She designed the ritual for 4 women, but we all really wanted her to join. And of course, somehow all the stars aligned, and Paul was sent to the US on work, and they said, take your wife with you. So that's how she got to participate in the ritual. But it was never intended as such, by us at least. There was no human intention behind it. I'm glad she did, but be careful with whom you participate in ritual. Now we're friends for life. And that's probably the most inappropriate, why I thought it most inappropriate. Ritual is extremely, even if it's not, in other ways, inappropriate. It's extremely intimate and bonding. And I do think, even if the ritual is nothing more than, well, the second ritual that I designed for Rebecca, because the first one was in the White Spring, so that is fine if you do it with your sister, not so much someone you've only met once in life and on a stage. It's just, what was I saying? Oh, it's so intimate that it just doesn't feel quite right to play it with another woman's man. And it's inappropriate. But if I don't participate, which is the intention, then it's fine. I will ask Rebecca about it. I'm just not used to not participating. But I've learned other things before. Sophia herself will guide your way.